Very good. All right, we're calling the meeting to order for the Angola Common Council, Monday, June 1st. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Coffey. Present. Councilmember Olson. Here. Councilmember Sharkey.
Here.
Councilmember Dow. Here. Councilmember McDermott. Here.
Understand the Angola Hornet baseball team is playing for a sectional title this evening. Game started at 6 and we don't have any updates. So if anybody has a text and can get one, let us know during the council meeting. And also the Lady Thunder softball team is playing for a national title tomorrow. So we're still more to look forward.
Chad said he was going to be attending that.
Yes, he did. Maybe we ought to send him a text and find out what we're going to
I
fax.
don't have his.
Jeff, why don't you do that? Would you please send Jeff?
Yes.
Send Mr. Ritter a text, find out if he knows what the score is.
Of which team?
There's a big board on the outfield.
Yes. All you gotta do is look way out there.
Text it.
Okay.
Request approval of the May 18th minutes, please.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unfinished business, ordinance number 1799, 2026, an ordinance amending the Angola Municipal Code, Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 10.15, Traffic Section 10.15.160, prohibited turns for the third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ordinance number 1800, 2026, an ordinance establishing a designated outdoor refreshment area at Dora for third reading.
Move to approve. Second.
Mr. Caruso, is there anything you'd like to address the council on this evening? I think you made a comment earlier today.
You know, pardon me for not having been to the earlier meetings to hear a little bit about it, but I don't have an opinion one way or the other because I feel like I need to learn a little more. If I could ask just a couple questions as a landlord to properties around the mountain.
Can we get with you after the meeting?
Absolutely.
We got a long meeting ahead of
Thank you
us.
so much.
Retha would be more than happy to spend all the time in the world with you. Motion second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ordinance number 18.
That's my start.
So with the third reading done, we will send our packet into the state. So we have to get their approval first, and then we'll start moving forward with signage and,
So the possibility is be open for the present?
yes, oh, yes, definitely.
Fine, that's my question.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Done. Ordinance number 1801, 2026, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Angola, State Road 827, north of Eastland Crossing, Section 1 for second reading.
Go to approve.
Second. Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, any other unfinished business for this evening? New business, ordinance number 1802, 2026, an ordinance amending the Angola Municipal Code, Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 10.25, Parking for first reading. This is in front of the Judicial Center by request of the county commissioners.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Now, for the main event of this evening. Jeff and Amber from Baker Tilly are here to present us with a comprehensive financial plan along with the water and wastewater utility financial management reports. I live for this too.
All right. Well, thank you. Good evening. Jeff Rao with Baker Tilly. So we do have a lot to kind of share, a lot of information to share with you tonight, but we'll try to be as succinct as we can. But we want to make sure we share enough information with you and address any questions that you have. So we're going to be kind of presenting this in two parts. One that we'll start with the city-wide or the civil side rather, and looking at the city departments, and we'll look at cash flows for each major fund and look at capital improvement needs. Very similar to what we've done on the utility side, which you're accustomed to. So looking at the civil side, and Amber Nielsen's one of our senior managers, and she helped prepare that section, so she's going to cover that. And then I'll follow that up with kind of giving an overview of the water and wastewater utility financial management report. So that's kind of the plan. So I'll turn it over to Amber.
All right, hi everyone. Again, my name is Amber Nielsen. I've been with Baker Tilly for about 8 years. I also with Jeff work in the Mishawaka, Indiana office. So several months ago, I started working on a civil 5-year financial plan with the input and help of Ryan, the mayor, and Amanda in terms of capital plans and things going on inside the city, as well as, we had a lot of discussions about legislative changes, and I'm sure you're all aware about things of that nature. So similar to what, as Jeff has said, you all have done on the utility side, kind of looking forward several years, you have a detail report that looks like this. It's doing this essentially the same thing as you've done on the utility side, but for your civil funds. So in here, and I'll kind of reference some pages in here as I go through the PowerPoint. There's a lot of data in here. I'll try to leave you with the format, how it's kind of set up, how it looks, but I'm going to mainly lead off of the PowerPoint just because if we look at every single number in this report, we might be here till 11 o'clock at night. So I'm going to focus on the PowerPoint, but if there's anything you want clarified in the detail report or anything you want to have a follow-up conversation about, let's certainly do that after the meeting or at a later time.
Amber, before you get going, can you
Yes.
use the mouse to move the arrow over to here?
Yes.
There you go. And then you use the roller.
Okay, perfect. So as Jeff said, we're going to split this into 2 sections. So the first section of this PowerPoint that you'll see are focused on the civil city funds. And essentially, kind of, as I have already said, the goal of doing this is really to provide a long-term view of the civil city's financial position, review legislative impacts, other changes, and then kind of focus on what are the capital needs of the civil side of the city, the parks, the street needs, et cetera, different economic development projects, and then kind of formulate of can those projects be cash funded? Are there financing needs of the city, and what does that look like, so on and so forth. So this just kind of, again, goes over this slide, the purpose and the key highlights of this report, and this really is to prepare that multi-year roadmap for you all, and then our hope is that Ryan can take this document into budget season, and Amanda and the mayor and you all can take this document as a reference and a guide when you're kind of talking about those projects, needs of the city. And of course, this report is fluid. This is built with data we have today. As you have all seen, last year with Senate Enrolled Act 1, there was a certain set of legislative impacts, and then that changed with House Bill 1210. So it's like there could be future changes. This isn't meant to be we print this off one time for you all and it's good forever. This report could change tomorrow based on information we receive tomorrow. So, but yeah.
This is like the 3rd version of this that we've finally presented to the council. Ryan and I
Yes.
and Amanda have been working on this for quite some time, so this is version 3 or 4.
Yes,
Work out.
I think this is version 3. Version 1 and 2 we did provide to the mayor. Ryan and Amanda walked them through, and then we all agreed that this version was the next version we'd be ready to present to you all. And most communities do something like this annually or maybe every few years. Kind of depends on the community, the needs, what's going on. Our capital projects, really heavy and changing constantly. So it really depends on Angola and your all need and what you want to do in terms of updating this into the future. But, if things do change, you at least have the numbers based on today. And you can say, okay, well, this changed $1 million. You can do the quick and easy math of how that changed and how that kind of, high level affects the general fund. But it also does, like I had said, Ryan can really take this into budget season when he's preparing budgets to present to you all as well. And this really is, instead of focusing only on that 1 year, as you may do during budget season, it's focusing on, 3, 4, 5 years into the future. So you will see, and I'll point this out to you in the detail fund, we do include, and as a part of this, Baker Tilly did prepare what we call our parcel by parcel analysis. So we included property tax caps and property tax credits forward into the future. So that would be your like 2008 circuit breaker credits, which were the tax caps in place prior to SEA 1. And then now we're adding the property tax changes, which are expected to increase the property tax credits, which are essentially lost revenue to the city, to you all. So we prepared what we call parcel by parcel analysis to kind of project what did Senate Enrolled Act 1 do to those tax credits, and what does that look like going forward into the future for Angola, and we've baked them into this report. So you'll see that here on a couple slides, and then I'll point those out where those are in the detailed report. And the next slide kind of gives you a historical look back, and if you're looking through the detailed report later, you'll see all of this on pages 1 through 5. So when we start, let me back up and tell you our process for this report. Of course, we had discussions with the mayor, Ryan and Amanda, to kind of get what's going on in the city, capital plans. But what we do is we take a look back several years. And so in this case, we look back to 22, 23 to kind of get an idea for the city, you know, how are those property tax caps trending? How did they look? How do net assessed values look? How have local income tax revenues trended over the past several years? And you'll see in the detail report, if you flip to, let me just have you flip to a certain page, so when I reference it, you kind of have it open. If you flip to page 11, which is of course one of the pages we have like a dump of numbers on, but it's actually the cash flow for the general fund. You'll see we look back about 3 years. So we look back in each of your major funds, historical data. So 23, 24, 25. And so what we want to do first is really get familiar with the trends that we're seeing in the city, with your finances, how your revenues have trended, how your expenses have trended, so on and so forth. And so you'll see on the left-hand side of the page, when the numbers start, you'll see we review the actual 23, 24, 20, 25 revenue and expense data for each of the funds that we include in this report. And we really only do this for your major funds. You know, we're not including your $500 Christmas festival fund in this report. We're looking at your general fund, your motor vehicle highway fund, your property tax funds, your major funds that are carrying the majority of the operating revenues and costs for the city. So back to the PowerPoint then, when we kind of do this historical look back, and I'll start here on slide 7 with the net property tax and circuit breaker credits. This is where we looked at historically what that kind of looks like. And we like to do that because some counties and communities are heavily affected by circuit breaker credits and some not so much. It really depends on the makeup of the community. But you'll see on this chart here, and the teal or the blue is essentially the net property tax that the city is receiving, actually depositing into your funds over the course of these historical years. And then the pink at the top, which is so small in comparison to the teal because you can barely see it at the top of the graph, but it is the pink number at the top of each bar. Those are in thousands, are the historical circuit breaker credits for the city, citywide. And so, of course, you know, data comes out daily at this point, especially this time of year when we're entering budget season. Since printing this report, the 2026 circuit breaker, or I won't call it circuit breaker anymore because 26 is the first year of the Senate Enrolled 1 Act impact. So it is not only circuit breaker, but those as well, your tax credits. That number did come out, of course, as soon as we finalized this. And so that 2026 number is about 200,000. So in our estimate in that parcel by parcel was about 203,000. So we're pretty close there, just short of $3,000. But that's a good sign. Even with the Senate Enrolled Act 1 tax credits coming this year, ramping up through 2031, that's not certainly a huge increase at all, or it's actually a decrease compared to 2025. And now many factors do affect not only circuit breaker, but tax credits as a whole, including, overlapping units and their tax rates, as well as net assessed value changes in the city as well. However, we are estimating, and you'll see that in the detail report throughout the reports, that the tax credits are estimated to increase through 2031, just mainly due to Senate Enrolled Act 1 and those changes. But per our report and per our calculations, we do estimate that they are certainly something that the city can absorb and manage as those ramp up through the coming years. Next slide. We also like to look, as I had said, the tax rates and the net assessed values of the city. And what you see on the chart here is a trend that we want to see. So the purple bars are the net assessed value in millions for the city since 2022, and you'll see those are steadily increasing. Since 22, those have increased quite substantially, which is a good sign, about 31%. And then we also like to see that tax rate, which is the city-only tax rate, and it is the red kind of line there over top the purple bars. That is steady and even decreasing since 2022. And that is because those two items are inversely affected or related. So when the net assessed value goes up, the tax rates go down. Same as the opposite, when net assessed value goes down, your tax rates go up. So, a growing net assessed value is certainly good for the city and good to keep those tax rates steady as well as decreasing even. Local income tax, obviously, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later in the upcoming changes, but this certainly is an important revenue source for the city, as I'm sure you're all aware. Senate Enrolled Act 1 brought several changes to local income tax, and then House Bill 1210 that just recently passed brought some positive changes that gives a little bit better outlook in terms of local income tax and what that looks like for the city. And so I will focus on that here in a few slides. But since 2022, local income tax obviously has increased as well, about just over 40%. And that's important for the city too. You want local incomes to be increasing to kind of maintain and even increase that revenue that the city receives. This is just kind of an FYI in terms of how the city in total tracks against so actual spending versus what you budget for. So typically what we like to see is, spending 85 to 95% of your budget every single year. And really what that does is it gives you, if you're budgeting pretty close to what you think you'll actually spend, it makes for easier planning. It makes for easier projections for you all to kind of have a better forecast or gauge of what you think the next year will actually look like. When you have really inflated budgets, obviously it just doesn't provide good tools and data to kind of look forward into the future. So 23 and 24 were pretty good years spending to budget. So in 23, it was 76%. In 24, you guys were right on the money at 98%, and then a little bit off in 25. I think that was mainly capital project delays. It was mainly the Economic Development Income Tax Fund, which has been a big capital spending fund. So sometimes you just can't really get away from that, especially if it's projects, timing, or when they happen, or even delays. But overall, definitely kind of going forward, just adding that to your plan for the 2027 budget planning. So as I had said before in the detail report, we obviously have a ton of numbers and data in here. And with that comes a ton of assumptions. So in the detail report, you'll see all of our assumptions on pages 6 to 8, which gets pretty detailed, but I have kind of like the high level assumptions, what we assume here on the slides. So receipts in general, we're pretty conservative. We're not, unless Ryan, the mayor, and Amanda has told us otherwise. We're not assuming there's some huge population boom or anything like that in the city. You know, we're not, unless you've told us like we're increasing a fee, we're not assuming anything like your charges or anything, fees, fines, increase like that. In terms of property tax, we do base it on data that we have, which are our solid estimates. So the property tax grows every year by what's called the MLGQ, which is the maximum levy growth quotient. The past several years, that has been capped at 4% due to legislation. 2027 is the first year that there is no cap on that, and it returns to the normal formula. Well, I guess I'll back up. There is a cap, but it's like 6%, but it returns to the normal formula with a cap of like 6%. So in 2027, it is estimated to be 5.6%. 28 is estimated to be 5%, and then 29 back to that 3.94% amount. So we are building in growth in property tax of those amounts each year. Property tax credits, I've already said, we're assuming our calculations with the parcel by parcel analysis. Local income tax, 26 is based on certified numbers. 27 through 28, we are assuming a little bit of growth in those amounts. Because we have seen growth in your local income tax in the past several years. But starting in 2029 is when it changes. So it was supposed to change in 28. House Bill 1210 delayed it a year. So now the current local income tax structure will no longer remain. You'll no longer see it in 2029. And so since local income tax is paid a year in arrears, to receive those revenues in 29, in 28, the county will have to adopt the rates at that new structure. And I have a slide here, a few slides back, that I'll go through of what that new structure looks like. But this is probably the biggest assumption in our report that maybe is like undecided, could change. Our report does assume that the city opts into a countywide rate, which in many counties, including the cities, position is that often is a more favorable option for you. And so essentially, I'll back up. Senate Enrolled Act 1 made it so populations over 3,500 had to adopt their own local income tax rates. And that was going to be on the adjusted gross income of Angola only. And I think in maybe version 1 or version 2, we had kind of gave you guys those numbers and what that looks like. And they weren't great numbers. It was a decrease from what the city currently receives.
I think you could put the word significant in front.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was pretty much the case in many communities. I won't say all, because there are some communities across the state with very high adjusted gross incomes, and it would be more favorable for them. But for Angola and many communities, it wasn't favorable. So House Bill 1210 that just passed now has made it an option for communities over 3,500. So you still have the option to adopt your own local income tax rate, or you have the option to opt in to a countywide rate. And what that does is now gives you that share of the county adjusted gross income, kind of like how it is now. It's going to be a different calculation because it's divided in the new structure amongst population, rather than right now it's divided amongst your share of the property tax levy. But it still allows that rate to be applied on a greater adjusted gross income. So our numbers in here assume, since that is the more favorable option, that the city does opt into that. I'm going to talk more about it later and what that means and how you guys have to get to that point in those discussions with the county, but that is what we assume here. Other assumptions are like disbursements. We do assume like a 3% inflationary increase. Obviously, your supplies may not increase 3% each year, or your personal services, which are your salaries, may increase more, but we're applying 3% across the board to all of the numbers in the detail report. And then we did this, so the capital improvement plan that I had mentioned that we work with Ryan, the mayor, and Amanda on does overlay to all of these cash flows in the detail report, so that is baked in. All right, so the next several slides are kind of the summaries for each fund, for each fund's cash flow. So I'm going to focus mainly on the graphs, which essentially tell you the same story. And then if you want to refer back to a specific fund in the detail report, the numbers are essentially the same. But overall, what you see on the slide here is the summary of all of the funds that we looked at and that are in the detail report. So what you see in terms of numbers here is the change in fund balance. So for the 3 historical years, and then we're looking forward through 29, obviously a black number is a positive. So that means we would expect, or we did see the fund balance to increase. And then the red number is a negative. So we did, or we expect to see that funds balance decrease. Overall, with all of the assumptions that we have built in, most funds are stable or even seeing some growth into the projected period. There are a couple funds which I've highlighted here, which are the economic development income tax and then public safety lit, which are seeing consistent reds back into the past or into the future. But really what this is telling you here, when your totals at the bottom are mostly black, is really that, you know, there's, with all of these funds, with funds accounting, you kind of have to play a game of Tetris, right? Where can I fit the budgets, what's allowable to fit in the budgets, because obviously each fund has a certain purpose. And the 2 funds I have highlighted are actually the 2 funds that will no longer receive revenue 2029 and on. Those are the current local income tax funds. So what will happen in 2029 is those funds won't receive any local income tax. All of your local income tax will go into the general fund. So once those 2 funds run out of money, those budgets, those annual budgets will have to be shifted to the general fund. And we do in this report kind of estimate that public safety lit will need to start shifting those budgets a little bit before 2029. And then economic development income tax, once that is spent all the way down, those budgets will have to get shifted to general or another fund, as I know that fund is mainly a capital fund. But overall, really no major concerns that has told us that the city can't afford operating budgets or things of that nature. What this tells us is that you certainly can, and you can invest back into the community with your capital projects. There may just be a couple capital projects, you know, that you have to go the step further to discuss. Is a financing needed? You know, you can always explore grants or further. I'm sure you guys already do. But overall, really good signs in what we're seeing here, looking at all of the funds holistically. Yeah.
The very last column, the 4-year estimated change, those are the accumulation of the last 4 columns of the estimated years.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. And I assume that also continues down to the bottom.
Yes, the totals.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So when we look at, then we take the change in fund balance and we look at, well, where does that leave your estimated ending fund balances? What we typically compare the ending fund balances to is a 15% cash reserve and then a 50% cash reserve. So 15% essentially means you've got 2 months, about 2 months worth of your annual operating budget sitting in your fund balance. That's kind of like what we would say is your minimum. If your fund balances get below that 15%, that is like the alarm bells should be ringing. The 50% is kind of our recommended, at least where you should be. And we say that because majority of your funds are property tax funds, which is your largest revenue source. You only get the property tax distributions twice a year in June and December. So 50% is really, you've got 6 months worth of your budget sitting in your fund balance. So here on the chart, you can see that 50% is the gray line, the very minimum 15% is the red line. The teal bars are in total of all the funds we looked at. the ending fund balances. And overall, this to us says the city has a very strong financial position of all of the funds that we reviewed and looked at. And you certainly can use those fund balances to continue investing into the city and your capital projects, things of that nature. So the next several slides, essentially, we show that same graph. Here, this is your, the bars are actually your spending every year that we assume, and those tie directly to the, if you look at your detail report, so like line 29 for the general fund are the total operating disbursements. So that ties directly to the bars here on this graph. And then you've got your 15% line at the bottom, your 50% line, which is in gray, right in the middle. And then the teal line is the estimated ending fund balance for the general fund. The general fund has seen some increase in fund balances here the past several years, 22 through 2025. And then we would estimate that continues in the projected period as well. Although keep in mind, like I had said before, when the economic development, income tax, and the public safety, local income tax, when those funds do run out of money, the general fund will take on more of the operating budget annually. So that is kind of the key issue to monitor for the general fund, as well as the local income tax estimate, simply because we are assuming that the county does adopt into a county-wide rate, or the city adopts into a county-wide rate. Motor vehicle highway, again, the line is well above our target reserve lines, and that is good news. This fund does see some fluctuations. That's more capital driven rather than operating. So no major concerns at all with motor vehicle highway. Local road and street, same thing here. The teal line is well above the reserve balances, which is really telling you, local road and street does have capacity for more of those future road and related capital needs. Park and recreation, same thing here. The teal line estimated ending cash is well above both of the targets. There is a steady buildup of cash. I'm sure you don't have any lack of park projects coming your way here in the coming years, so all looks really well there in park. Economic development, obviously we've talked about this one as it's one of the local income tax funds, does start to see a downward trend in 2029. You'll see in 29 we don't have it estimated to run out of money completely. We estimate it has about $1 million left at that point in time. So you're kind of looking at that 2030, 2031 when this fund eliminates all of its cash reserves altogether. And then those capital budgets kind of typically earmarked for this fund will have to be moved to other funds at that point in time.
But your forecast for the general fund doesn't take into account that you're gonna be drawing from the general fund to fill in this deficit here. Is that true?
It doesn't, and especially with this fund.
So the chart can be a little misleading, showing an upward trend when
Yes.
if you balance out the downward trend of this against the, you basically, some of these charts are gonna be flatline when you
And
things around.
And this fund is probably the main, I don't want to say concern, because at this point it's not a huge concern, but the main key issue to watch, because this fund, your economic development income tax, like I said, has been mainly used for capital, right? So capital projects. So in 1 year that could be $500,000, and then the next year it could be $5 million. So, when you're looking at a $5 million year, it gets a little tricky of like, well, I don't know if the general fund can absorb $5 million that of like, historically we would have gone to economic development income tax, right? That fund, but that fund has no more money. So definitely once this fund runs out of money, the city will need to kind of, sit down and really stay really on top of those capital plans to see what's coming and what fund has that capacity to, absorb that $5 million? Or is a different, financing approach really needed?
I think the one that's really gonna be the telling is the screen a couple shots ahead.
Yeah,
That the public safety is the one that's really gonna draw down the
yes.
general fund.
Riverboat, this fund does have adequate reserves. We reviewed this fund, but it has pretty limited revenues. It's mostly used for general repair and maintenance, but it does have decent reserves well above, kind of its target. Public safety lit is the other fund I'd mentioned that's really kind of on that downward trend. Again, we are estimating that fund runs out of money, in 2027. And this one, I believe, mainly funds police salaries. This one has had some cash flow struggles, not struggles, but it has had negative cash flows the past several years. So it was kind of already on, on that trend of, an imbalanced, budget year over year, which is why we assume, it will run out of money, sooner than that 2029.
The public safety lit goes away,
Yes,
so it's gonna draw this fund down.
yes.
The only place we got to replenish that is the general fund, so it will put significant negative pressure on the general fund.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so if I can add too, so when we turn the page on, so if you update this next year, we look at 2030, that's when we're gonna start seeing the impacts of that as we roll into 2030.
And you will see,
So jumping ahead, Jeff.
sorry,
No.
you will see back on, if you look at the general fund detail back on that page 11, and we've highlighted this row, it's, item number 28 or index number 28. In 29, we did assume a full year of, public safety, local income tax was, earmarked to the general fund. So we've got 1.6 million kind of, because that is the annual budget, roughly 1.5, 1.6 million out of public safety, local income tax that will be moved to general. So, just looking at public safety, you're kind of okay, a little bit comfortable moving that budget to general, but then when you lay over the economic development income tax budget, then it's like, okay, it's getting a little bit of pressure here.
Sorry, on those two then for the public safety and then the economic development, is it being advised that we keep those funds in those categories until they deplete, or would we move those ahead of time?
The current guidance from State Board of Accounts, I believe, is to keep those, because public safety, local income tax is restricted to
Right.
only public safety and fire. And so as long as those funds are still in those funds, they are still restricted to that purpose, so transferring them elsewhere ahead of time isn't recommended.
Okay.
So they'll need to stay in that fund until they're completely drawn down.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then municipal fire, this fund, over the projected period here in the graph is looking, decent in terms of fund balance compared to target reserves. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe you could go with personal services are salaries,
yes, correct. So salaries, benefits,
benefits. The sky blue is the
supplies.
supplies,
Yes.
all other services and charges,
So that would be,
contracts with townships,
contract,
things like that.
yep, repairs,
Cumulative fire
It
equipment.
wouldn't be the contracts, no, because this is expense, those would be revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right on.
Other services
Cumulative.
would
Okay,
be things like repairing vehicles, repairing buildings,
hydrant, not a hydrant repair.
hydrant repair, the water department would take care of.
it's kind of like your catch-all, or like if fire was paying their own internet bill, you'd find that in there as well.
Utilities.
Cumulative equipment fund
That's not-
is a different,
that's
it's a different
fund.
bucket.
That's a different fund.
Yep, and that's, restricted to capital only.
That's coming up.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't think we have that in the PowerPoint, but we do have that in the, let's see. We do have that in the detail report.
I'll find it. I'll find it.
Also,
I'll find it. If I may, I will find it.
This would also include if we were to add staff to fire and or police. And or give raises to stay as competitive as possible.
You put an inflationary forecast in your,
That's at our current staffing levels, and I believe they assumed a 3% increase.
Of staff.
No, 3%
no.
increase in wages.
does not count headcount increases, it's just inflationary pay raises. Is how what they factor in.
Thank you.
So in this report as well and on the slide, you know, when we kind of get through all of this data, because I've told you like, oh, this fund looks good, this fund looks good, but really overall, what's our observations? What are we telling you to take from this and to kind of consider? So we've got a couple of things listed here. Obviously, you know, considering those potential budget impacts, we talked a lot about public safety lit and edit as we move forward towards those funds actually running out of money. You know, we'll have to kind of rerun these numbers to see what's feasible, where do these budgets go, into which fund. In addition was the other big assumption that I have mentioned in terms of the municipal lit and what does the city plan to do kind of in that aspect when that changes for adoption in 28 and collection or distribution to you all in 2029. That kind of rolls into as well. I'm not sure if the city has heard about the must countywide kind of convening that, but we are encouraging our clients to kind of begin those conversations with the county because it does give you all a voice, it gives other units a voice. So if those conversations are happening countywide, I'm sure you all would, but just kind of participating in that and providing your thoughts is really a great idea for the city, as well as to kind of collaboratively decide what do local income tax rates look like for the county in 2029.
Amber, do you know how many communities have started those discussions?
Several. I actually have a presentation at one tomorrow in Fulton County. Some are faster than other counties.
Elkhart has already submitted their recommendation.
Have they?
Back to the state.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a meeting and they all got together. They've already done it. So yes, there are counties that are doing it countywide.
They've decided to go a different route, I think, and
Yeah, they came up with a very unique.
a unique that would kind of at least target to make everybody whole. So they're not living within the sort of the boundaries that the statute sort of laid out, but as long as they all come to an agreement.
One size does not fit all over the state of Indiana. It's very obvious. At Elkhart County, they all got together, okay, here's what the tax rate is gonna be, and we're gonna divide it by population. And that was a recommendation, all the cities, the county, that's the way they handled it, we just go with population, and here's the rate, divide it out.
So it's the county that convenes it, is that correct?
The county, the law says that, we're already starting to work on it, we're gonna get together with some of our municipal counterparts throughout the county. We've got AIM coming up, 4 members, municipal members of the county or members of AIM. They're coming up to kind of educate everybody what the process is. Mr. Caruso's here, the president of the council, and he and I have had conversations about getting the process started and figuring out how we want to handle it and what we want to do going forward. We are going to get our municipal counterparts together here very soon and try to work through those. So the municipal rate, and correct me if I'm wrong, municipal rate applies to all the municipals throughout the county and is divided out by population.
Yes.
So you're going to end up at that 9.2 that you're recommending that covers everybody, not just City of Angola, that covers all the municipals throughout the entire county. And it's gonna create winners and losers out of the whole thing. And Clear Lake is one of the big losers out of it because of the unique characteristics of how their funding was developed beforehand with their levy and the thin population they have. So it's gonna be very interesting how these numbers all shake out. And Mr. Caruso and the county and all the municipal leaders are gonna have a heck of a time trying to get to something that that works for everyone. I'm sorry.
No, that's a good point, and I'll mention that 9.2 that I had listed was really the number that we had come up with that makes Angola whole. That doesn't necessarily mean it makes Clear Lake or other communities whole, and so the whole purpose of the must is to really get everyone in a room, review the numbers for everybody and say, what does everybody need, right?
I did not have a chance to run the numbers today, but my guess is there's gonna be some municipals that have a significant windfall at that rate, and there's others that are
Yeah.
gonna be hurting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a slide on what the new lit structure is here in a few slides, just so you're all kind of have that as a reference point. But the last final things is again, kind of about those capital plans, keeping, especially with the whole economic development and those budgets needing to shift, just kind of keeping really up on those capital plans and identifying that funding. And then that rolls into number 3. The city currently doesn't have any outstanding debt on the civil side to finance projects as historically you've been able to, whether that's secure just cash funding or grant opportunities, but on the civil side, you know, if it gets to a point, especially with the economic development income tax changes of we need to do a certain large capital project, we need to issue property tax backed debt to do that, you know, that's certainly something that the city could consider into the future. This is really small on the slide, but it is actually page A1 in your detail report. So this is the capital improvement plan I keep mentioning that I worked with the mayor, Ryan, and Amanda on, and what kind of we built into the report. So a lot of different projects going on, a lot of road construction, street maintenance, things of that. This includes vehicle purchases, things of that nature, new fire engine, park projects, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously, like I said, this is pretty fluid as well. You know, obviously a $100,000 change might not be the game changer to want to rerun all the numbers, but a $10 million project that needs added to this report certainly can.
Between revision 1 and revision 2, these were the biggest changes that were made by Brian and I. We rearranged and pulled projects and changed timing and took some things off the list that we'd really like to do, but it looked really ugly if we did them, so we.
And I'm sure as you start the 27 budget conversations that you'll have more changes, right? So just a couple of slides on looking ahead, and we've talked about several of these, and it's, you know, really kind of surrounding those legislative impacts. So I did provide the new local income tax structure here just for you to have handy. You've already seen this. That will definitely help as well, you know, as if the city does begin any kind of must conversations with the county. So beginning in 2029, you've got county services on the far left. So this is the maximum rate for county services is 1.2%, and that goes directly to the county. A fire EMS rate is the next column of 0.4%, and that is distributed amongst county, municipalities, fire territories, and districts and certain townships. Volunteer fire departments are optional, and it's kind of a complex calculation that, so let's say, for example, the county did adopt the 0.4%, all of the fire or EMS services in the county would be identified, and then you'd have to identify kind of their service coverage in mileage, and then it would be that revenue would be distributed amongst those different services based on that.
Excuse me, based on mileage or population?
Sorry, service coverage.
Service area,
Yes,
okay.
and mileage. Non-municipal units, so the max is 0.2% in total, but it's a 0.5% per unit type max. So your townships can get 0.05%, your libraries can get 0.05%, up to 0.2% max. That is also on the AGI of the entire county, distributed amongst by population. So the municipal services, then one is the one that applies to you all. Whether you opt into the county rate or you adopt your own rate, the max is still 1.2%. What the opt-in or opt-out, like I said before, changes is whether that rate applies to only Angola's adjusted gross income or countywide distributed amongst by population. And then that is also the municipal services, as well. So it's kind of a one or the other on the last two there for you all. We already talked about the must. The only thing I will say on the must, we had a good question on, our community starting to talk about that now. Yes, they are, because a report has to be submitted to the DLGF by, no later than December 1st. That seems like a really far way away, but it's really not. When you have to get everyone in a room probably multiple times, come up with an agreement, prepare the report, submit it to the DLGF, and then it does have to be a unanimous agreement. But we're encouraging, still meet. If it's not unanimous, still file the report. That it's at least giving feedback to the legislators of like this did or did not work in our county.
Did the statute actually require that everybody has to agree?
Yes.
Yes.
And they
has to
didn't have an alternative if they didn't?
No.
Okay.
You don't have to convene one. So a county does not have to. It's optional to convene a must.
All right.
And it's also not binding. So if Steuben County decides today what it's going to do in terms of lit rates for adoption in 2028, that could change. It's not binding to what is actually adopted in 2028. But the agreement does have to be unanimous.
And that October 1st, so if a county and municipalities don't convene prior to that, they miss the opportunity. Is that what that means?
Okay. So if it's not unanimous, then what happens?
Ultimately, the responsibility to adopt a lit rate still falls on the county, regardless. If it's not unanimous, we still recommend you file the report, send that to the legislators so they can see, an agreement was not reached. And then if an agreement can never be reached before that 2020 rate adoption, it's still up to the county to adopt lit rates. So then the responsibility still falls on them.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, I'll talk to the judge.
Okay.
So maybe to help Dave, as I'm understanding it, it's still gonna be the county council that,
Yes.
regardless of whether we make an agreement or not,
But it's not the question is what if they don't make it unanimous?
it's a recommendation though, isn't it? Or
Yeah, it's more of a recommendation because it's not binding.
even if everybody agrees, it's not.
I think what the state legislature basically told us is we took a system that was working, we broke it, and we don't know how to fix it. Can you help us, give us suggestions?
The goal of the must, yes, really is to give everyone who's receiving local income tax a voice, right? It gives Angola a voice to tell the county, this is the rate we need, this, and Clear Lake, this is the rate we need, right? Could the county decide to adopt a different lit rate than what was decided in the must? Sure, because they're the ultimate adopters of that lit rate. But I think the goal and the hope of the must is that everyone kind of gets, yes, more collaboration at the county level.
Remember, the rates, it's a maximum of 2.9 cumulatively, correct? So even though for the municipal, it could go up to 1.2, if another one was at its maximum, it would not be eligible to be at 1.2.
Yes, so.
Because all the maximums together exceed the 2.9.
Yes, so if you added all of these maximums, it's like 3% or 3.1.
Yeah.
So one of these buckets won't go to the maximum.
Yeah.
And so that's probably another goal of the must is to really decide what are the lit rates and what are, how much rate does each of the buckets get?
We're the least important.
Impact.
The least important, because who has influence? But move on.
I think it will generate good discussion, but you need the numbers in front of you, right? The 1.2 for county services could generate a lot more than their current lit rate, so maybe they don't need 1.2. Or likewise with the municipal services rate. Maybe everyone gets whole at 1%, right? And then, so then you've got that 0.2, and then you can give fire and EMS their maximum, right? You need all of the numbers for all of the different buckets in front of you. That's the goal of the must, to then kind of collaborate and be like, this is what makes everyone a winner.
So when you say you have a presentation tomorrow in Fulton County, is that for the must group or for Fulton County specific? Because it looks like the must task force would need some sort of cumulative financial analysis.
Yes.
Or everyone, I guess, we're all bringing our own perspective and then.
Yeah, so Fulton County, and on one of these slides I mentioned, so the must includes one representative from each of the county council as well as the city and town fiscal officers. So the must doesn't include like your fire and EMS people, your township trustees. So the actual must doesn't include those folks. However, the way Fulton County is doing it, and really we think is a good idea, is they're still getting all of those people in the room. They still want those people to have a voice. Fulton County hasn't formally convened their must, but we're expecting them to formally, like on paper, convene it tomorrow and then schedule their must meetings of that kind of small group. But they still want, the township trustees in the audience. And I mean, they invited the schools, even though the schools, under the new lit structure, the schools don't get any local income tax. They get a little bit right now. It's not make or break. I think Fulton County, I just know this off the top of my head, the schools there get like $200,000 total. So it's not a huge amount, but under the new structure, the schools don't get anything. But, the schools are a big driver of where people choose to live, right? So they want the schools to kind of be in the audience, have the voice. So tomorrow they are doing a presentation looking at the numbers for all of these units. It's a little bit more informational. We're just kind of showing them like numbers at what does everyone look like at the maximum rates, kind of giving them the starting point of that. Then we assume they'll convene the must, kind of get into more of the nitty gritty financial modeling scenarios to back into like, what's the actual rate we want to get to. I also am helping South Whitley, or Whitley County, not South Whitley is in Whitley County. Whitley County, they're starting this. They've already formally convened their must. They're kind of scheduling their meetings, just really doing the same thing. So I would say every county is kind of different in terms of how they're structuring it, what they're doing, who they're inviting. But again, it just boils down to that collaboration at the county level and what the county leaders and municipal leaders kind of what you guys want to see that come out to be. All right, the last few slides are essentially, I've covered everything. So that concludes the civil section. Any questions for me? If you're thinking about something tonight, my information is in the PowerPoint. You're more than welcome to email me or call me. I'm sure you're going to keep this financial document right on your nightstand and read it as you fall asleep tonight. That excites me for you all. If there are no questions, I'll turn it over to Jeff, and then if there's anything you think of after Jeff's, let me know. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Amber. All right, now we'll pivot to the fun stuff.
We take about a two-minute break.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
$11,000 from the schools. We've got 4 teachers. Maybe one administrative. Maybe with benefits, not even 4 teachers. Yeah. But not benefits, half an administrator. Yeah, half your equipment, that's quarter of salary. Because I know that.
Sugar is down about once a month.
Why you got picked to come to the east side?
Make the rest of your shift so much.
That'll be all right. I'm going till 11, so.
Okay.
Come in for this?
Volunteer. We get next overtime, huh? There goes our budget, thanks.
Taking it further.
We're gonna have to get rid of this poor lady so you get your overtime.
After all those.
Rita, you're in trouble. Thank you. I think we'll figure out.
I'm hoping to.
We're gonna hire a 14-year-old. We can pay minimum wage.
I'm sorry, thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
Hold on, we got two
Oh.
council members still on.
Apparently they did take a break.
We don't need no sneaking council. In the meantime, Angola's losing the game.
Oh,
It's 9-5 right now. 10-5, I take it back. In the bottom of the seventh, or top of the seventh.
9-5, wasn't that a movie?
10 to, it's now it's 10-5, top of the seventh.
Who's up?
The Cal's up, 10-5, top of the seventh, so it's down to 3. Do they play 7? Don't they play 7? Yeah. I think. Okay.
You have to tell me later.
Oh. If I got my cough drops.
Anytime you want to just say.
All right, so we'll pivot to the utilities. We'll start with the sewage works and then we'll move on and wrap things up with the water utility. So everyone has the detailed reports. We're just going to we're going to kind of continue on the executive summary that Amber was speaking from, just to kind of hit a lot of the high points. So starting with sewer, like we've looked at in the past with the utilities, we always like to sort of set the table looking at an historical perspective. This is on page 37, by the way, of the summary report. We always like to get a recap historically what's transpired. And so and this will be sort of a similar theme, I think, for both sewer and water, but a good positive trend from a financial perspective. So what we're showing here on the first graph, we're looking at several things. One is the trend in the total fund balances of the utility. So each bar graph represents a year, 23, 24, and 25. And the total of those bar graphs shows the total of the combined total of the fund balances within the utility. So you can see a positive trend there going from 2023, where total sewer catch was at about 3.8, and then that ends up at about 4.8 by the end of 2025. The red bar graph there represents the recommended minimum reserves for each one of those years, and so you can see in each year the utilities cash well exceeds sort of those minimum recommended reserve requirements. So essentially, the sewage works continues to maintain a strong, very strong financial condition, but not only that, a strong cash position as well. So in 2025, again, just a few notes here to point out. Total cash, 4.8, exceeded the minimum reserves by about $3 million. So the $3 million represents, funds that can be used to offset future capital investment needs, inflationary increases, and so forth. Also note that there was a positive cash flow in 2025. So the utility brought in about $382,000 more than it spent. So again, a good positive cash flow trend over the last 3 years. All right, some more financial performance metrics. This graph here really shows budget to actual. So we're showing, starting at the top, revenues, and again, this is a good positive trend here. Revenues exceeded budgeted revenues. Right below that, total expenses, so that includes operational costs, capital costs, debt service. The actual total expenses came in below budget. Operation and maintenance, or O&M, came in below budget. Debt service came in right on budget, which is to be expected. And in terms of capital expenditures, the city, or the utility rather, spent less than what was budgeted for 2025. So again, continue that trend, and budgets tend to be a little bit higher than actual expenditures. All right, so that's just a quick historical perspective. Now looking sort of prospectively, obviously one of the bigger drivers, or if not the biggest driver, when we're looking at financial performance and adequacy of rates and charges, are the planned capital improvements of the utility. So over the next 5 years, the Sewage Works has identified about $13.8 million of capital investment needs. That comes out to, from a annual rate funded standpoint, in other words, not looking at bonding, but actually paying for projects out of cash on hand, that comes out to be almost $1.1 million annually. And just to put a finer point on that, nearly $3 million of the rate funded capital in total is between 2026 and 2027. So we kind of have a front loaded rate funded capital plan, if you will, that's really front loaded in 26 and 2027. So as a way to preserve cash balances and financial performance, we are anticipating or looking at a bond issue, or the city is rather, in 2027, looking at a bond amount of somewhere around $9.4 million. That's looking to issue primarily for the purpose of the Trine Lift Station upgrade. Expected cost is about $2.5 million. And we're also anticipating, or the city's anticipating, a contribution from Trine of about 25% of the cost. Other capital projects that we're looking to consider building into that bond issue are lift station upgrades, clarifier improvements, storage expansion, filter press replacements, kind of all those totaling about $5.9 million, or call it $6 million. We've also added into the assumed bond issue amount about 20% for carrying and contingency and inflation as well. All right.
So Jeff, that 9.4 million is based on capital costs, and then you just, well, with the 20% contingency
With the 20%.
for the soft.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so with that, what are the rate adjustments that we're recommending, and what are the primary drivers? We've already kind of covered the capital needs there, extensive capital improvement plan that the city needs to undergo. That's the major driver. Also, the assumed issuance of the proposed bonds, that $9 million or so, including looking at the debt service of repayment of that debt over a 20-year period, is also being looked at or built into the financial plan. Also, continue to maintain adequate reserves, and even though we're looking to spend, or the city's considering spending down some of its existing cash reserve, obviously there's an eventual limit to that. So want to make sure that the plan takes into account those reserve requirements. And then we're also building in some inflationary increases that have occurred since the 2020 rate adjustment, which maybe I should have led with that, but the last rate adjustment was in 2020. So we're 6 years removed from the last rate adjustment. So when we add it all up, what we're looking at is a total proposed increase of somewhere around, I'll just round it, close to 40% in that range. And because we do have some time on our hands in terms of when some of those capital projects will hit and when we anticipate issuing debt, which would be in 2027, we've had discussions with Mayor and Ryan and Amanda about looking at maybe phasing, building up and phasing those increases over a three-phase approach, with each phase representing roughly 11.5% increase, with the first one starting in 2026. So this summer, and then the next one roughly a year after that, which would be in 2027. And then the third increase coming on right around 2028.
So just a question for maybe the mayor and Ryan. The list of items that were in capital projects that were in this, were there a lot of them that didn't make this?
There's always something that doesn't make it, yes, and they're more than likely some of the things on the list we will find to be unnecessary when we get there. So Ryan and I are recommending we move forward with the first rate increase this year, primarily because we haven't done a rate increase in quite a few years, and we have seen inflation erode the earnings. And to prepare for a possible bond issue when we get to it, start collecting some proceeds now, build up a little bit more cash reserve. We feel a rate increase is warranted at this time, but we will not put the rest of them on autopilot. We will reevaluate them as necessary when we get a little closer. The further you get out, the more cloudy your crystal ball gets. So we will.
So you could have some that pop up though that you do need that aren't on the list today.
That very well could be, yes.
Yeah, because, you know, it's hard. I'm picking up what you guys are doing, and I say you guys, all of us. Financial performance looks great. But the reality of all the stuff that needs to be done
Yes.
is really tough.
Yes.
A lot of it goes back to the study that we just had presented with all the capital needs that we really need to address.
Wow.
Kind of.
Some of those items may move themselves up in importance depending on circumstances. Some of them may move down in importance, but we do feel a rate increase primarily due to inflation and other issues is warranted at this time.
I was just kind of curious too, the contribution from Trine on the lift station, was that a surprise that they were willing to?
No, and we are, that is best case scenario right now. We are still talking to try and.
That's an assumption.
It's an assumption that we feel is safe.
Okay.
We hope to improve on the situation, number one, on the cost and possibly their contribution. We are having conversations with them. They are gonna participate in a non-cash way that may actually lower the cost significantly.
I thought they might help do some of the work.
Yeah, so we're working through those issues, and
Yeah.
I've got another call scheduled with them tomorrow, so.
The other question I had is, do we typically use bonds for
In utilities, yes,
utilities?
Very-
I don't
very
know
common.
that, so that's just a naive question.
very common, and it is primarily the only place we ever borrow money,
Okay.
or is against the utilities.
Because of the size of the dollar amount?
Yeah, the dollar amounts get big very quickly.
Okay.
Jeff, let me jump ahead. You're proposing 33% in the water and almost 40% here. Those are in conjunction. So if somebody has $100 sewer, water, and a sewer and water bill, they're going to have about a $35 jump on that? Or is this going to be a $70, $65, $70 jump on that?
Yeah, so what we're.
Recommendation.
Yeah, so what we had kind of talked about is the water isn't, those projects are looking to come on more closer to like 2028. So what we were considering is maybe implementing sewer increases. And then once the sewer increases are fully implemented, then looking at implementing.
But looking at the dollars and cents for somebody that's paying $100 a month for these utilities, they're combined in a bill. Are we looking at these as an addition or in conjunction? In other words, is their bill going to jump to $35 extra, so it's $135, or is it going to jump to $170?
Yep. So if we turn to the last page, and this might help answer the question. This looks at, with those proposed rate increases, what that average bill would be. So if you look, so the blue column is the water, the red is sewer, and then the yellow, I think we have stormwater in there. That's not changing. But so if you look at, let's start with the red. So right now, the red, the average user is at 4132. If we start implementing the 11%, and we're showing it in 2027, but we're.
It's 11% of the 41 then, so it would be, where it would be if my example makes assumptions, it would be 100 plus the 35, not 100
Yeah,
plus.
it's not compounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not compounded.
That's what I wanted to be certain of. It seemed that's what was being said, but I wanted to be sure.
Yep, yep. Now I don't know how to go backwards. I'm. Presentation may be over. You might be able to use the wheel.
The end.
Are you sure you didn't ask that question on purpose?
And we want you to be here as long as possible.
All right, so I think I'm back. No, good question though. Yeah. So I think I need to go back one more, just real quick. This is what we want to make sure that we're maintaining adequate cash reserves. We don't want to spend all our reserves down. So this graph here shows the fund balances, projected fund balances in the blue, and this does assume the rate increases do go into effect. The red is the recommended minimum reserve. So as we started this conversation, we know that we have very strong cash position, well above the minimum recommended reserves. What we are anticipating is that, again, if everything kind of plays out exactly to the spending plan, which we know that likely won't happen, but we would be spending down a good amount of our cash reserves. However, we would continue, and especially once those rate increases fully kick in, we would continue to maintain cash hovering right at about $3 million per year, which is still roughly $800,000-900,000 above those minimum reserves. So still a strong cash position, just not quite as strong as what you've been used to.
And I guess what was the assumption to have still above the recommended reserve?
I'm sorry.
27 through 30 to still have above the recommended reserve? I mean, if we took it down to the recommended reserves, would that, I anticipate, impact the rate?
Yeah, it would. So if we were targeting just this minimum down to the minimum reserve, then that would reduce the rate increase recommendation there. Not something we would typically recommend. We like to see it above that minimum.
Okay.
Just because of unforeseen things that can, like the mayor said, as you all know, when you're dealing with a utility project or emergency repair, it can get expensive really, really fast.
So this is, I guess, Baker Tilly's recommended reserve cushion above the recommended reserve. I'm using the same terminology.
It's a good point. So what this recommended reserve really shows you is that when the city took out the last bond issue and the city adopted a bond ordinance, we are required to adhere to certain minimum reserve requirements in there.
Okay.
And so that's what this red line recommends or reflects. Doesn't mean we don't go over that. Actually, I like to see reserves above that, but that's the very minimum baseline that you don't ever want to go below.
Thank you.
So recommended next steps, considering implementing, and the mayor made mention of this just a minute ago, we don't want to get out over our skis. We're not looking to adopt a 3-phase rate adjustment right now because things can change and will likely change. But what we are recommending is that the city move forward with the phase 1, kind of the first step in that process. So looking to move forward with the rate adoption process for the first 11.5% approximately increase. This is just a proposed kind of timeline. In order to accomplish that, we could introduce a rate ordinance on first reading on July 6th meeting. We could hold a public hearing on July 20th, and then kind of final adoption or final reading on August 3rd. Again, this is just a proposed timeline, but one that would have the first phase adopted, by end of summer roughly, and rates to go into effect, roughly around September.
How do you generally see the public? Because it's like this, the earlier you begin, the softer the landing is how I look at this. And the longer you wait, the harder the landing is going to be. So, and what I mean by that, the rate, you can't delay after a while on the higher rate.
implementation.
Yeah.
So what do you typically see municipalities stuff could do? Because you can see it's coming, we're not gonna get away from this.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the approach that we tend to recommend and like to see is, to your point, start early and try to implement smaller, more frequent rate adjustments. Yeah, versus waiting till it's, you're implementing a one-time 50%.
And then people are carrying clubs, that's right. Okay.
Just in your neighborhood.
In my neighborhood, they would. Not rates. Not rates. Oh, that's bad.
So looking ahead, again, looking to potentially prepare for a 2027 bond issuance, there's a lot of steps that would still need to take place. Just kind of listed out some of those, obviously fine tuning what projects to include and what those project costs might be. That may include some design by your engineering department or outsourced engineering firm. Looking at what financing options best fit the city's needs, whether it be an open market bond issue or an SRF bond issue or others. Obviously you'd have to go through the bidding process, project timeline. And then once you get to sort of that bidding process, then that's when we would be looking at potentially implementing or adopting the last two phases, because then we would kind of have all the information in place. And like the mayor said, the plan would be to every year sort of reassess kind of where things are at, dust things off, and sort of approach it from that standpoint. All right, any questions on the water, or on the sewer rather?
Just one maybe for Ryan, because there's a lot of new things in here that I don't understand. When you issue a bond, how do you pay where's the interest? The money that, you got your base that you're getting from the person that's investing. It's to pay back to the investor. Where does that come from?
Well, from the revenues, from the rates.
Just the revenues. So, and it's not just a dollar for dollar payback. You're paying back some kind of cost plus, right?
Oh, yeah, it works like your home mortgage.
Yeah.
You pay a payment and you're heavy on interest to start.
So to do a 2027 bond issuance, we have to have this rate adjustment in place?
Yeah, in order to legally close on the bonds, we would have to have a rate that's adopted that demonstrates the city's ability to pay the debt back. Yep. Doesn't mean we would have to have all the phases are already effective, but we would have to have an ordinance that adopts those rates in a date certain in terms of when they would go into effect.
Understand. Thank you.
That's why with our discussions, we wanted to go ahead and accelerate, because I think originally we talked about maybe starting the phasing next year, but we thought if we could accelerate it and get started this year, then we can reevaluate and see what we needed before the debt issuance.
Yeah, makes sense.
Rather than locking into the higher amount.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, one more section, water utility. So similar information we're sharing here, obviously different numbers, but starting with historical perspective, looking at the last 3 years, again, the water utility has performed well. Not quite as strong from a cash position, but still strong nonetheless. But we're seeing positive cash flows or increases in cash reserves every year, as you see here. The blue line represents that minimum recommended reserve balance, so we're well above that for all of the 3 years. So again, good, strong, positive cash flow every year and maintaining strong cash balances. Same as sewer in terms of financial performance, looking at actual to budget for 2025, revenues outpaced expenses. Expenses came in below budget. Debt service came in on budget, and capital came in, actual compared to budget was just slightly more, but very, very close to budget there. So good, strong, positive financial metrics. Again, similar to sewer, we're looking at capital investment needs on the water side. So, about $6.8 million of capital investment needs, at least identified now, high priorities. Average rate funded capital, meaning non-bond funded, about $600,000 per year. There's a North Wayne Street water main project of about $2.3 million that the city anticipates undergoing in 2026. So we will show that as a cash outlay in 26 in the financial plan. We're also assuming that $1 million of that is being funded from civil funds, civil fund contribution. Then we also have Jackson Tower repainting, about $600,000 that we're building in 2029. So similar to sewer, again, we're looking at or anticipating a potential bond issue in 2028. Right now, we're estimating somewhere just over $3 million. And that issue would be for the purpose of water main replacements for Calvary Lane, William Street, and also Westview Drive. And again, similar to sewer, we're building in an additional 20% contingency into that estimated bond amount.
Sure. On our helping in the state going up to Pokagon, they gave us low interest or zero interest.
Yeah, it's the revenue bonds of 2025. I think we borrowed about 920, and we're paying it back interest free.
So, but we still making payments on.
Yeah,
So how long did those payments gonna last?
The last payment's in 46. We financed it for about
46.
Yes. We financed it for the length of the life of the project. You gotta repaint the pot towers every 20 years.
Oh, sure.
So the life of the project goes 20 years, we financed it for 20 years.
Okay, good check.
Yeah, and in our modeling also includes the estimated additional revenue that the city anticipates collecting from Pokagon, so.
You mentioned those bonds. We wish we would have had more projects ready to roll.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
We
thinking.
scrambled trying to find it. When they made the offer, we thought, oh my goodness, what can we do?
Water tower, what are you doing?
What are we paying for?
It was in there.
Let's drop the ball.
Thanks.
Mitch has got a paintbrush. He's out there painting every day.
Aquaman.
All right, so primary drivers, obviously, capital investment needs, potential future debt service on a proposed 2028 bond, continuing to maintain those adequate reserves, and then, inflationary pressures, or not just pressures, but inflationary increases that we've seen since the last rate adjustment in 2021. Total combined, well, I should say combined, but just for water, total increase, we're looking at estimated at this point about 33%. Again, because we have time on our side, we're not, and because we're looking to implement sewer increases, the thought here was to delay any increases on the water side until, somewhere around 2028, and then start phasing increases from that point on. So potential increases in 28, 29, and in 2030. Based on what we know today, we're looking at somewhere around 10%, but those, percentages may change, obviously, with changes that may occur over the next couple of years. Again, this is just an illustration of where we see your fund cash reserves going. We get a spend down potentially in 26 and 27 because of those cash funded capital needs. And then, once we get out to 2028 and we issue bonds, we do see a little bit of a dip and then a slight recovery in 2030. Sorry, my eyes aren't working too well there. 2030. But in every year, we're still exceeding what those minimum reserve requirements are. And then we continue to, starting in 2030, building on those cash reserves. So next steps, again, no immediate rate action necessary or recommended until we get further down the road a little bit, 27 or 28. Utilities looking to complete the North Wayne Street water main replacement project. And then after that's done, continue every year to reassess the financial health of the utility. I'm sure the city will be getting some engineering, preliminary planning for the water main projects here coming down the pike. Also identify any additional large-scale projects that are needed, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years for potential to, if needed, build those into the bond issue. It's always good to kind of maximize the bond amount because it is timely and expensive to go through that process. So looking to potentially add any other projects that large scale projects that may be needed in the near future. Yeah, that's the kind of the quick summary of the water utility. We mentioned, we already kind of covered this, but this looks at if we were to play this out through 2030, what does the combined utility bill look like, and how are we trending? And you can see that here on the last page. So right now, the average customer pays roughly almost $79 for all three utility rates combined. We see that increasing, by roughly $5 in 26 and then into 27. So as these roll on, as these increases roll on, you'll see that increasing. And if everything were to be fully implemented out in 2030, we'd be looking at a total bill of about $105, which, quite honestly, when we get out to 2030, that you'll see the far right column, which is the current state average, which is about 96, which, by the way, the city's well below that current state average. We would anticipate that state average to also trend upward over the next 4 years as well. So in terms of where the city stands and rates across the state, it compares pretty well, actually below the average.
Can you do water and wastewater public forums at the same time? You were talking, the one said we needed to do an 11% increase. Maybe.
Can you overlap them, maybe?
Can you have the public hearings? Yeah.
Well, you have to.
Same. Yeah. Well, I realize that, but can you put both utilities in one public hearing?
You quite could, but I don't think we will.
Okay.
Yeah, you could, two different ordinances because they're two different issues, but.
Yeah, when we're waiting, aren't we, a year on the one anyway? The water would be a year.
Yeah.
And every time you have a rate increase, you're gonna have a public hearing.
If you write an ordinance that has it baked in, meaning on this date it's gonna go up, on this date it's gonna go up,
You
on this
cover
date.
that in the first meeting.
It's done. But if you don't put it on, which I'd prefer not to put it on autopilot at this point until we actually do a bond issue, then we may be forced to do that. Then you would include them all, but I would rather do one bite at the apple at a time right now.
It just puts you in to a lot of public hearings.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
That's what the process is all about. We have 3 readings for the ordinance, but there's only one public input meeting that's for the held. But that's part of the process, and we do that all the time. Our debt issue is very, just as a comparison, you looked at some numbers of doing improvements. Right now, our current debt across both utilities is 3.6, 2.1 on the water, and we're 1.5 on the wastewater. And if you look at our aggregate interest rate that we're paying because of some of the transactions and some of the structures we put in place, our interest rate is 2% or 2.5% or something. Probably, if you average it out, it's probably maybe 1.5 or something, because a lot of our debt is interest rate.
Yeah, we're paying 0 on the sewer, actually. I believe our older bonds on.
The interest on all our sewer is 0.
Yeah, and to compare it to kind of where the market is now, if we were just to go out, issue a revenue bond, for 20 years, we'd probably be around 4.75, 5%, something like that. So, yeah. Any questions I can answer? Any additional questions, I should say. Well, thank you for your time. I know that's sort of a slog to get through all of the numbers, but hopefully that's helpful. informational to help you make decisions going forward. So, but like Amber said, if you have any questions or if there's any follow-up needed, just reach out, let us know.
Jeff and Amber, thank you for spending the evening with us and enlightening us on what our finances are. We appreciate all the work you do for us and all the guidance that you give us. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Appreciate it. All right. Have a good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Request approval of the proposed engineering services agreement for the Trine University lift station replacement in the amount of $98,400, which is also attached. This is the project that we've talked about on Thunder Drive that is on the top of our list of things we need to do. We're going to get started with the engineering work on that. And right now, we will probably prorate the engineering costs with our partners over at Trine at the same percentage that we partner with them on the construction piece. So that number, the net of that number may go down a little bit. Amanda, is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Just that the proposals with F&B, who they were here, they did our study, they're doing our water study, so I think it's a very competitive proposal dollar amount based on the work that they've done with us already.
They're gonna move
We're looking to move it out of the roadway. The lift station
Where are they gonna put it?
in the grass on the south side of Thunder.
Remember that big
Right
key
between,
is?
right between the road and the dorm?
No, right, just east of Hershey. There's a grass strip between the parking lot and Thunder. The big blue T is in the grass, just
Right there?
right in that area, but
I didn't want to be in the way by mistake.
This is a big pump station, right? This isn't large.
It's not that big.
it would, we would increase the capacity. Right now, if we have a power failure or if it goes on high level, we have about 20 minutes before the dorms flood out.
They're expanding like crazy, and I'm assuming this is in part due to.
Correct. They know they can't build and have any more wastewater come into our lift station without a new lift station. Yes.
Which is whether he's
Yeah.
aggressive partnering with us. They need it. They want to move the project right along. Like I told them the other day, they move at the speed of light, or
So what kind
speed
of
of
help,
light, we
what kind of
move
help
at
is
the speed of
trying to
sound.
give us, besides financial?
Mayor, question?
Mayor, what kind of, you alluded to Trine was interested in giving us in-kind assistance in this project. What we
We're probably gonna let them put it out to bid. They can probably bid it out cheaper than we can because they're a non-governmental entity. And typically, private entities can do a little bit better when it comes to finding bargains in the construction. So we're looking to reduce the construction cost by having them do it to our specification.
So does that mean that when this project is done, we're going to give Trine the money and they pay off the?
Basically. Basically, we are partnering with them. They're not.
But that's the process you're anticipating?
But we own the
Sure.
facility.
And access to it and all that other stuff.
And maintenance.
Yeah, it is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to provide them service. They're one of our, they are.
Beyond the adjustments
They are.
of where the location's at, do you anticipate any new piping?
We don't think the force main will need to be upgraded. That was upgraded how many years ago?
Yeah, not very long ago.
So from a capacity standpoint, just the lift station.
So I property was talking about their expansion. They're talking internally, probably some more expansion of dorms or other buildings like that. The anticipated increase in size of the lift station and the piping. So, do you have any discussions with that in terms of making sure we get the right size amounts so we don't have to do this in
Right.
10 years?
So that'll be part of this engineering design. So we know what their plans are that they've shared with us, but as we hire this firm, that will be one of those meetings is having Trine at the table and say, okay, exactly what are you building to connect into this?
Sure.
And then that's how we will design.
So that's interesting in some of their, at the current moment, master plan over the next 10 years.
Correct.
Okay. That's my question. Thanks.
You get a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
There's a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Request approval of change order number 3. So Kagan Utility Project Division 4. It has to do with contract price, contract times.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Lots of no papers on that desk. Request approval of the City of Angola facade grant agreement with Jenny Lou's Greenery for the property located at 107 West Gale Street in the amount of $5,202.79, not to exceed $10,000.
Move that we approve the request, the agreement.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just one question really. Is it typical to do garage doors?
I mean, we don't have a lot in downtown, so we only do this in the historic district.
Oh.
Theirs is not ceiling,
I read the
bringing in,
information.
yeah, so, I mean, we don't have very many in the
Do they open
downtown,
that
but
for their
anything,
business,
yeah.
actually?
Yep, they have it open quite often.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's kind of a cool feature for them.
yeah. The
It
picture
always
looks
was a
great.
garage.
Huh?
It's, as long as I can remember, it's been a garage.
Yeah.
They take their big plants out that way.
Yeah. okay.
Yeah, it's
So
kind
that
of a neat feature to have open during business hours and,
Yeah, I wasn't having any problem. I was just
Yeah.
curious because the picture looks really nice, the front of the building.
yeah, anything on the facade really is eligible. It's just garage doors are few and far between in downtown buildings, yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Reports, clerk treasurer.
Nothing from me.
Kim.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Rita.
No report, sir.
Chief. No report. Mr. Gaff. Report. Mitch. Report. Amanda. You got something planned in a year? You got something to tell us this time?
Got nothing.
He's got nothing. All right.
He's wondering why he got picked for this meeting. Most of them are 10 minutes long.
Yeah, by the way, this is one of the longest ones we've had this year. And it was the most exciting. You could see I was sitting on the edge of my chair all night long, right?
You have any interest in extra copies?
Request approval of allowance accounts payable voucher, 80,061 through 80,224, totaling $1,721,672.94.
I move that we approve and pay the bill.
Going once?
Second.
We've got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any other business?
I don't want to prolong this, but I want to compliment Dave with what he had to say at the opening of the Sheets Park. Did a fine job for the city, and I want to especially compliment the Parks Department and the other city employees, because that was a great grand opening. It was well attended, and it was really handled well. If you were there, you saw that. They did a great job. Matt and Tabitha did a great job of getting that organized and getting things settled.
I agree.
Complimented.
I appreciate Mr. Wilson filling in for me on a couple of issues last week, that being one, and I've got nothing but compliments.
And the other thing I wanted to throw out there was, I think what we just looked at, with Baker Utility, these forms and charts and financial reviews is a reflection of our own clerk treasurer, by the way.
Yes.
You've done a good job, because you just got rated. So that was good, so congratulations.
Ryan does a great job, and all our department heads do a great job of watching every dollar and cent. The reason we're in such good financial condition is because of Ryan and all of our department heads. They watch things very, very closely, so they all deserve a thank you in our finances. And just so the council knows, we are starting an educational process with the other municipal government units, which there are, well, Hudson, Ashley, Hamilton, Clear Lake, Fremont, Orland, and the city of Angola, municipal governments that are located within Steuben County. We are getting together with them next Monday here at City Hall. I think everybody has confirmed except Hudson. Hudson Chief Financial Officer is not available on that particular day. We are having a representative of AIM come up to walk us through what the different tax rates do in preparation for the must meetings. The rate that they mentioned this evening, the 0.92, whatever that rate was, is a countywide rate which all municipal governments would participate in is at one rate. That doesn't necessarily work for all of us. We may end up recommending something back to the state legislature that is not necessarily in state law at this time. I think my first choice would be go back to doing what we were doing. It was working for everyone. It was working for Steuben County. It was working for us and the rest of the municipal governments. That is not an option right now, but there's no reason we can't recommend it. But we are gonna start the process, kind of an educational series. I did invite Dan Caruso, the president of the council, to sit in on that meeting if he'd like to come and join us. But we will be going over some of these numbers, and I will send that 9.2 rate, matter of fact, I've already sent the rate to AIM to have them do an analysis of what that looks like on a countywide basis for all the municipal governments. But we are starting that process. Ryan and I will be attending that meeting next Monday. I don't remember what time we scheduled it for, but scheduled for next Monday. Anything else this evening? Did we get a final on the game?
10-5, Angola lost.
Well, let's
Trying to never make up for it too.
and let's wish the Lady Thunder softball team all the luck in the world.
Get the brooms out.
And yes. All right,
Right,
we are
beat the
here.
mouse.
The 50-0 team got beat twice.
Yes,
50-0 got beat twice.
yes. And they left the tournament 50-2.
50-0. Mr. Mayor, can we, are we able to come to these meetings or is it you and Ryan?